Hello there. I wanted to talk about various things, and I think I'll start off with something that came up from Richard Gill's channel, Professor Richard Gill, who did like a test live video this morning in which he asked the audience about this notion or this idea that Dr. Dewey Evans was sent or requested, as I think Richard Gill thought, but was sent or requested a further batch of notes, medical notes of quote unquote cases. We're never really sure what the word cases means in terms of it. Is it an individual child, or can a case be multiple apparent events that somebody at the hospital has decided is an event retrospectively because they're trawling for events and then they become cases. But anyway, to cut to the chase, that Evans was sent this supplementary bunch after the original bundle of notes, which were and has been variously reported as 32 or 33 quote unquote cases in 2017. That's the original amount that was said to have been sent to him in 2017 in the summer, about which he makes a report in the December of 2017 from memory, his first set of reports, and from which he chooses, of this 32 or maybe 33 depending on what interview you listen to, he chooses a subset of 15 cases in which he decides that there has been deliberate harm in these cases, and therefore he pushes away 17 or possibly 18, depending on whether you think it's 32 or 33, or whatever you believe he's saying, because there's a movable feast here. Different figures are being thrown out, different interviews. Sometimes they say, oh, it was about 30. So who knows? How long's a piece of string? But it's 30 something apparently. He chooses 15 of them. I think pretty much all of those end up on the indictment. I can't say definitively that, but I think that's the case. And then 2018, Breary, quote unquote, finds the smoking gun, even though he's been told about it a year before by Dr. ZA when she's on maternity leave. Allegedly, she rings him up and tells him about that in 2017. Somehow he waits a year or so and then, quote unquote, finds it himself. So that creates 17 cases, as it were, out of which you eventually get 22 charges. They drop a charge of murder in terms of in relation to poor baby Kay. They drop that at the last minute. You end up with 22 charges in the trial in 2022. Going back to Richard Gill's video today, hope I'm not gabbling too much here. There's a lot of stuff here. It's about this idea that he was sent a supplementary bunch, this is Evans now, from the hospital, or did he request it? And if so, on what basis did he do that? Was sent a whole lot new lot of notes, from which he said there were 25 cases at least that he thought were suspicious of harm, in addition to the ones that ended up on the indictment. Now, as we know, because there haven't been any further charges, none of those suspicions have gone anywhere since that time. And here we've got an issue about when that happened, this supplementary group of notes or bundle of notes that was sent to him, cases, if you will. I'm going to go back to, I've got it up on the screen now, go back to the New Yorker article, which really was a watershed back at that time when that came out. Rachel Aviv, New Yorker article, and there's some way down in the last third of the article. There's a bit here, and I'll just read this paragraph here. Lucy Letby's defence team said that it had found at least 2 other incidents that seemed to meet the same criteria of suspiciousness as the 24 on the diagram. I'm assuming that's the chart that they produce, but obviously it ends up with 22 charges. But anyway, there's so many numbers here. I've read in other reports like there were 25 original charges, but anyway, it reduces down to 22 when you look at I'm just calling up another tab, but the judiciary.uk, which is the table of all the counts from 1 to 20. Sorry, that goes to, it's 21 counts. It ends up with 21 counts. The various counts and the mechanism alleged for the babies concerned are set out in the table below. This is the final judgment. There are 21 counts. I've got loads of there's a Hereford Times one here I've got open as well, in which it talks about 22 charges. So there's this moving thing where certain charges are dropped at certain points in time. Anyway, we end up with 21 there. I'll get back to the New Yorker article. So 24 on the diagram. But they happened when Lucy Letby wasn't on duty. These are ones that the defence team said, well, here are examples of other incidents which meet the same criteria of suspiciousness. It would be interesting to know a bit more about what they mean by that, criteria of suspiciousness, and what those cases are, and whatever happened to them, what was the outcome of those, and did they end up in this supplementary group? God knows. It's very hard to get your mind around all this, because anyway, but they happened when Lucy Letby wasn't on duty. This is the crucial bit here. Well, the other, that's important as well, but this is crucial. Evans identified events that may have been left out too. He told me that, i.e. Rachel Aviv, he told me that after Lucy Letby's first arrest. Now, when was that? 2018, right? 2018. After Lucy Letby's first arrest, he was given another batch. Of medical records to review. That suggests it's coming proactively from the hospital. Oh, we found something else. You need to look at this. He was given another batch. That's what it sounds like. What it was like in practice, God knows what it was like in practice. I think they're all colluding with each other day on day. By they, I mean Evans, the consultants, and the police. They're working this thing up. Anyway, he was given another batch of medical notes to review, and that he had notified the police, this is what he told Rachel Aviv, of 25 more cases that he thought the police should investigate, i.e. seeing signs and symptoms, as far as he's concerned, of deliberate harm. In his inimitable style, he didn't know, that's Evans, didn't know if Lucy Letby was present for them. And they didn't end up being on the diagram either. That must be this chart, the charts, with all the X's down it. If some of these 27 cases, 27, so Rachel Aviv here is including the two that Lucy Letby's defence team says were matched criteria of suspiciousness, whatever that means in practice, plus these 25 that Evans finds, in which he doesn't know whether Lucy Letby is on duty or not. That makes 27. If they'd been represented in the row of X's under Lucy Letby's name, if they'd been represented, those extra 27 cases, the row of X's under Lucy Letby's name on that chart might have been much less compelling, i.e. that she wasn't on duty for many of them, if not all of them. Who knows? We don't know what they are. We don't know what they refer to, because they've never followed up to a charge. We don't know when they occurred. We don't know what time period they're about. They could be about going back to 2012. Some of them, couldn't they? If that's what they're trawling, if Breary and Co are trawling through the records, they might be retrospectively identifying so-called crashes, because we know that formally crashes are not notified. Then there's no record made of them en route as a practice, as a protocol. That's not happening. So it's about retrospective identifying of things that you can work up into deciding, well, this is a crash, not that we thought it was then or made a record of it, but I'm just deciding it now, i.e. Breary, Jayaram, Dr. B, Gibbs, who knows who, other doctors involved, working up this second batch of so-called cases and notes to send to Evans, from which he produces concerns about 25 further ones, none of which are followed up by the police. Well, I say they're not followed up. They don't result in a charge. I don't know to what degree they looked into them and why they discounted them. That's the most important thing, isn't it? Why they would have discounted them. I don't want to lose my train here and confuse anybody, so I'm trying to stick to what I'm... Okay, that's the point Rachel Levy's making. Had Lucy Letby not been on duty for these 25 that Evans thinks are suspicious and that need to be brought into this chart that's produced, had she not been on duty, then there wouldn't be X's for X number of those 25, stroke maybe even 27 supplementary cases or incidents of note, should we say. What they are, I mean, could they have included deaths? Well, perhaps they could. They could have included deaths, couldn't they? Because if they're doing a trawling exercise, this is the consultants now, then why wouldn't they look at the deaths? Why wouldn't they try to work up and see if this Evans character can align some of the deaths in 2012, 2013, 2014 to Lucy as well? If they can make them fit, you know. We're never going to know what was really... We're never going to... Maybe the defence will, the new defence. But at the moment, we can't know what's being sent where and when and what about, who's doing it, on what criteria, on what basis. I suspect massive collusion, and I think many people do also, between the police, the consultants and Evans, in a way that makes the process that they were allegedly undergoing utterly corrupt to the nth degree. The final bit of this paragraph in the New Yorker, this is back from May, as you remember. The Cheshire Police and the prosecution did not respond to a request for comment citing the court order. That old chestnut, well, maybe they are bound by that, but nonetheless, it just gets them out of jail free, doesn't it? I've got to slow down. Mine's working too fast at the moment, and I might be gabbling. When Richard Gill, in the live he did today, asked that question, I did my best to answer it in terms of citing the New Yorker here. But what I mistakenly said is that it stated that certain details I said were stated in this article were from a different article. I'm trying to find that article now, and I'll explain what I mean by that. But I said to Richard Gill in the answer and by email that it stated that it was after the first arrest. Now, implicitly, and there's a reasonable inference that you'd think that though the second batch, we'll call it the second batch, 25 cases, were sent to Evans between the first arrest and the second arrest. So that's between the arrest in 2018 and the arrest in 2019. But that should be the two bookends, shouldn't it, of time? It shouldn't be, and this is where it gets more complicated, when Dr. Phil Hammond comes in recently, a couple of months ago, when I was on Twitter. I'm no longer on Twitter. I was following Dr. Phil Hammond. He was also following me on Twitter. He made some statements, which I'm not sure ended up specifically in the Private Eye series of articles. They may have done, but I'd have to read through all 11 of those again. But he certainly made very clear statements on Twitter. This is Dr. Phil Hammond now. That in his recent discussions with Dr. Evans, Dr. Evans told him, i.e. Dr. Evans told Dr. Phil Hammond, that Evans had supplied a further 25 cases that he believed the Cheshire Police should look into, not in 2018 or 19, but in 2023. So this is based on a statement by Dr. Phil Hammond, who's has been talking, an email exchange, I believe. I don't know if they've met or spoken on the phone, but certainly an email exchange in which Evans has said to Dr. Hammond, I've sent another 25 cases off in 2023. That's after the trial. That's after the trial started, isn't it? You know, and possibly after even after even after the convictions have been given, the judgment's been made. Depends when in 2023, that wasn't stipulated. So we've got this disparity here, about 2 sets of 25 new cases, whatever a case is, being sent to the police by Evans, about which thus far nothing has happened, no charges have been laid in respect to them, and I think personally never will be. They never will be. So where does that fit in with what Professor Gill asked this morning? Well, I don't know. What I'm trying to find, and I did 1 or 2 videos about this, maybe more, in which I mentioned yet another report. So we've got the New Yorker report in May. We've got the tweets, possibly in private eye, from Dr Hammond about these 25 cases. And there's another article out there about which I spoke in several videos, which specifies, it kind of works up, it increases the detail level from the New Yorker article in the following ways. In this article, which I'm trying to find, and I've done, there's a lot of material I've done, so I can't find it very easily, the article or the video that I did talking about this. I mean, it's be going through many hours of video. And this is where I hope somebody could remind me about what article I've seen, because I haven't made up these details. And do you know why I haven't made up the details? Because I'm not Dr. Dewey Evans, and I don't do stuff like that. I'm not making it up. There's another article out there in from a mainstream newspaper or magazine. I don't think it's from one of the videos. I don't think it's from File on 4. But it says the following about this supplementary group of cases, so-called, that were sent after Evans has seen a further batch, and then he's chosen. And in this article that I did several videos about, Evans is meant to have chosen from, very specifically, he's been sent 28 cases from the Countess of Chester Hospital, i.e. the consultants, no doubt spearheaded by Bariri, from which he's chosen 25 as suspicious and which need to be followed up. 25 from 28. And he's done that very specifically, it states in this article, in 2018. I think it said the following year. In other words, it talks about the first batch coming to him in 2017, the main batch, if you will, from which the vast majority of cases that end up on the indictment are chosen by him, the 15 from the 32 or 33, depending on where you read it. And the very next year, being 2018, is when he gets this supplementary batch of 28, very specifically 28, from which he chooses 25. If anyone can help me and help Professor Gill and help us all to remind me where I could have got that from. I've been looking for a couple of hours. I can't find it at the moment. But there's sections of a video or 2 videos I've done in which I'm saying the following about how bizarre this is, that the police are trusting the accuracy of Evans when he chooses 15 cases after 32, and they all end up in the court. They all end up, the vast majority, with convictions. And yet he sends them a supplementary amount, whether it's in 2018 or, according to Dr. Hammond, 2023, and they can't do anything with them. Now, why might not they be able to do anything with them? Either, and it's all around whether Lucy Letby's on duty, isn't it? Probably. And therein is the rub. Therein lies the rub of the cynicism at work here by the police and by everybody involved, really, in this whole evil and twisted saga of injustice, this miscarriage of justice, is that if these 25 extra cases that your expert, your man, Dewey Evans, finds and says are suspicious, and they are all occurring when Lucy Letby's not on duty, the cynicism involved in the police just dropping that. Let's say he did it in 2018, between and as Rachel Aviv says, between the first and second arrest, and this other article says, we'll leave Dr Hammond over to one side for the moment, his claim of Evans telling him that it was 2023 when he did this, rather than 2018. If the police just push it aside as not helping their narrative, i.e., he's telling us there's all these suspicious things happening, but it's not working for our story, is it? Because she's not on duty, we'll quietly drop all those. You know why? Because they're exculpatory, aren't they? But they're more than just exculpatory. There's the cynicism of the police pushing them away and not investigating them, supposedly. But there's also, it goes to the reliability of the so-called expert, doesn't it? That he's found 25 cases of somebody else somewhere potentially doing deliberate harm that nobody's going to follow up anywhere at any point, really. Can't do anything about them. And if Lucy Letby's not on duty, then they can let it go. But who's done them then? Either who's done them or they didn't occur and there isn't deliberate harm in them. That goes to the reliability of the expert from the police's perspective, or should do if they're not as corrupt as a 9-bob note, or should do. Do you know what I mean? Do you know what I mean? Can you see what it is yet? I don't know if Rolf Harris should come into all this, but anyway, it's bizarre, isn't it? And if Lucy Letby had been on duty for these so-called 25 extra cases that Evans suspects are involving deliberate harm, and yet they go nowhere, well, that's another conundrum as well, then, isn't it? Why would they go nowhere? Why would they go nowhere in the context of 15 cases already chosen by Evans in 2017, plus Breary's 2, which he got from Dr. Z.A., really, and held on to for a year for reasons best known to himself? Why would these, and if Lucy Letby is on duty for these other ones of suspicious harm, or is it that Evans got it wrong 25 times in a row? And this is the point I make in the video myself several months ago, a few months ago at least, in which I'm saying he's getting worse. Here's the timeline. All his choices, all Evans' quote-unquote choices, because he's been directed to do them, but let's just play along with their little game for a bit. All of Evans' choices made in 2017 from the original bundle of 33 sets of notes all end up utterly believable and convincible and able to be pushed right through to a conviction. Pretty much all of them. I know there are some cases where they don't reach a verdict and there's one not guilty. But the vast majority get pushed through to a conviction. And yet, his second stab at it, in which he chooses an even higher percentage, 25 out of 28, vis-a-vis 15 out of 32 or 33. In other words, he's getting better at spotting it in 2018. Chooses 25 out of 28 and none of them go anywhere. Either because he's totally mistaken or somebody else is doing deliberate harm, but the police don't want to talk about that because it clouds and muddies and undermines their narrative of the one serial killer nurse. And they don't want to do that. Whatever way you cut it, whatever way you look at this, it just manifestly demonstrates clear collusion and corruption from all the parties involved. That's why this aspect is really important. I do want to find that other article. If somebody can direct me to it, because I've already made the argument what it's about, because I can remember the argument, because I made it in previous videos. I want to find the source where it says specifically, and to repeat again, I'm not going to make this stuff up, because I'm not Dr. Evans, and I'm not the Cheshire Police. I'm not going to make shit up like they do, or the prosecution. I need to get that article and find that article, because I'm just like this. I haven't done it in a systematic way, which I should have done. There's like hundreds and hundreds of links on my computer, and I just can't find this article at the moment, which says very specifically now. Obviously, it came out subsequent, well, not obviously, but it did come out subsequent to the New Yorker article. There's an article out there in which, just to say again, It's specified that Evans was sent a second batch of 28 sets of notes, from which he chose 25. I know I haven't made that up. If I, otherwise I'm going absolutely insane, and I don't think I'm going insane yet. He chose 25 out of 20, 25 out of 28. They don't go anywhere. And he does that specifically in 2018. There's a very strong inference from the Rachel Aviv article that happened in 2018, but she puts it in a less declared way, as it were, by saying it happened after the first arrest. Now, after the first arrest isn't after the second arrest, is it? So the second arrest is in 2019, so it's between the arrests then. A good chance it was in 2018, this further 25 sets of notes. There's a phrase I'm looking for in my head now, the curveball of what Dr. Philip Hammond says Dr. Evans told him. So it is at one remove. And I've not seen the email from Dr. Evans to Dr. Hammond. But that's the claim that he made. And I brought it up on Twitter to Dr. Phil Hammond about this disparity of claims about times. Years we're talking about, a difference of 5 years between sending in this supplementary group of 25 extra concerns about 25 extra potential scenes or cases of harm. 2018, in this other article I'm looking for, and backed up by Rachel Aviv's article in the New Yorker, against what Dr. Phil Hammond is saying Evans told him via email, in which Evans says, I sent it to them in 2023. That's a massive difference, isn't it? 5 years. And I put it to Dr. Phil Hammond on Twitter. I didn't get any replies. He might just, I'm not saying that with any side to it. He just probably didn't see it. He's got a big account there. I'm no longer on Twitter. I waited quite a long time. I never got a reply about it. I explained in briefer terms what I've been saying in this video. I said to him, and this is what I'm saying to anyone listening now, do you think it's likely there are 2 sets of 25? 2 sets of 25 further supplementary cases that Evans sent to the police that have ended up going nowhere, as it were. I'll just use that as a shorthand. They've not gone anywhere. They've not come to any charges. In other words, he's got 25 other suspicions about 25 separate cases. Nothing ends up happening to them. Do you think there are two lots? In other words, there are 50 in total, 25 in 2018 and 25 in 2023. That sounds incredible, doesn't it? It sounds unlikely, and the fact it's the same number as well. So there's all these conundrums going on about what Evans has said to different people at different times. Doesn't surprise me. It's all part of the muddiness of all this. But nonetheless, it seems quite certain that there was this second batch sent to him at a certain point in time, and at a certain other point in time, whensoever that was, 2018 or 2023, he makes his choices according to this article I'm trying to find. I don't know what it's in now, where it is. I know I've got it in one of my links, but I've got hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of links. I can't find it at the moment. Doing me head in. Just doing me head in, doing me nothing. And anybody who can find it, I'd really, really grateful, because I really want to get that information very specific to Richard Gill, because he's asked this question, and I think it would be good. He's working on this as well. He's very curious about this supplementary group, as are many other people as well, I know. But Professor Gill asked this very specific question today. So yeah, it's another conundrum. We want to find out more about it. I thought I was going to add in some other extra things. I'll have to leave them to another video about some FOIs I've had back, which I'll do about that. Been trying to find some other connections to do with Evans in the past. I listened to the John Sweeney, what they say at the end might be the final episode of their series of podcasts with Mr. Abel Smith, that I've been doing that podcast. Very shocking final episode. I haven't listened to a lot of the other episodes yet. I will do. But yeah, so there we are. God, that was exhausting. Hope it wasn't too exhausting to listen to. Just to say, if anyone can let me know what the article was I was talking about in a video that I did, I can't now locate, because, well, I could. I'd have to sit and listen through, over, I've done 170 something videos, so it's just can't seem to find it at the moment. Anybody knows where that article is, where it talks about the figures, 25 cases chosen by Dr. Dewey Evans, 25 out of 28 sent to him as a supplementary group of notes. Thank you. Hope this hasn't been too annoying. I'm a bit hyped up, it's just madness, all this. I'll make some other points about the John Sweeney podcast I heard, and some other things to do with the FOIs, as I said, and some other Evans research that I've been trying to do, which I'm not saying is new, but it's just, well, there's one or two bits that I'm finding, doing some searches using different time brackets, going back to the early noughties. Do they call it the noughties? 2004 and this sort of thing. But yeah, please also watch, if you haven't, the latest John Sweeney one, about a case that Evans was involved in covering up, very, very definitely covering up the actions of other doctors some 34 years ago, which takes us back to about 1990-ish, isn't it? And it's a very harrowing story, but thanks very much for listening. If in the comments, if anybody does find that article that I'm searching for, which I've already spoken about in previous videos, as described, probably too many times I've described it, but I'd be really grateful. And a lot of this is about information and trying to link up things from different sources, isn't it, really, and looking at disparities, really. Thank you very much. Have a good winter solstice. I think it's the solstice today. The light's coming back from tomorrow onwards, apparently. And Lucy means light. And so the light is growing. And the door to that false imprisonment is soon to be opened. And the truth is coming out into the light. Thank you.